because I want to approach a note like this one, which is nearby, or this one, which is nearby. And these are both friendlier notes. You will sell more records playing these notes than playing that one. But using this as an interesting way to get between obvious note number 1 and obvious note number 2, gives you more options. Are we all good with this?
Yeah.
I'm always mindful of sounding overly patronizing because I'm deliberately using like really basic material, but I don't want to exclude anyone here, and I think that the basic procedure should be the same whatever your level of playing is, whatever freaky scale or mode you're learning. It should be the same approach as this. Learn what each note does, because each one has its own color, its own mood, its own character, and you can use them a lot more effectively if you kind of make friends with the notes in that way. Let me give you another little insight. Does anyone here not know about the modes of the major scale? I'm guessing everyone here does know the modes of the major scale. And interestingly, I think the reason rock guitar players all know the modes of the major scale is because of Joe. He made it okay to be a kind of a rock god and all that, but still know what you were doing. That was kind of a revolution that happened when I was a teenager, and it's kind of awesome to be here. Just thought I'd throw that out there for a minute. That's definitely a way in which he's changed what we all do. And it worked. Cool. You all know the modes. If I say Dorian, we can still be friends. But something that doesn't often get mentioned in the scale books is not all modes are equal in terms of how safe it is to use some of the weirder notes. If you look at something like the Dorian, there really aren't any bad notes. The most offensive note in the Dorian mode is just a little bit tense, but it makes you sound cool. It's odd, but it doesn't hurt. And then the next page of the book, it says, right, now we're going to do the Phrygian mode, which, apart from its dubious lack of vowels, will help you to sound kind of... Every book has a different way of describing it. Some say it sounds Spanish, and some say it sounds kind of Egyptian or Moroccan or whatever, but essentially it sounds a little bit mysterious. That's the way the textbook would sell you the Phrygian. And what happens there, let me just check this. I need a new song, actually. There are too many pretty notes in my A minor song. So this is A minor, the sequel. Yeah. All right, so and you can tell how much I'm feeling the music here. Really, all of my soul went into that. But it kind of sounds moderately impressive and fluid and cool to do these fast flurries. But interestingly, when you do the thing that I mentioned earlier, that not everyone does, the weirdest notes in the Phrygian are a lot more handled with care than anything the Dorian had to offer. Oh, that's a nice one. Thank you, textbook, you've enriched my playing. These are not wrong notes. Seriously. According to the scale diagram, I'm doing nothing wrong. According to the scale book, that sounded exotic and mysterious. I thought it sounded shit. So this is another thing you have to learn about any scale or mode. Once the diagram or the textbook has said, this is what you have to do, you can then unleash your inner music critic and just ask yourself honestly, does this sound good to me? In some cases, it's a matter of teaching yourself to like the sound by maybe forcing yourself to listen to more music where that sound is prevalent. In some cases, it's just a dangerous note, and you really do have to handle it with care. So I'm just offering this as a kind of a liberating thing. It's okay to question the sound of a new chunk of theory that you learn. All good so far? Mm-hmm. Okay, it's that time. I can't remember when we started. We still have time, don't we? I'll give you an interesting example of how sometimes we just need to listen to more music that uses a certain group of notes before we can teach ourselves to like it. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's had any classical schooling in any instrument will know about this, the melodic minor scale.
What's this?
And various clever people like Paul McCartney and Sting have found a way of sneaking that scale into pop music, so that we've had some training in how to decode the sound of the melodic minor rather than the more obvious natural minor. Yeah. But there's still a thing in a lot of people who come from a rock type background. When they learn this scale, they do so kind of unwillingly, because to them it doesn't sound quite right. So this scale is broken. Is it still under warranty? I want my time back. I learned this and I regret it. Yeah. And that's a case where you just have to teach yourself to tolerate the sound of something that maybe is unfamiliar. But the way I would like to prove this to you is, I won't actually do it, just go through the thought process with me. If I said to everyone here, in A minor, let's all play Greensleeves. Do you know Greensleeves? It's kind of a British thing, but you've probably heard it somewhere.
Britain's
version. The most popular response to that would be... How did that sound to you so far?
Fine.
It's wrong.
It's played more than a major, like a...
It's that. So pretty much everyone who heard that tune as a kid corrected it. It's like, I think what Henry VIII's composer, let's face it, Henry VIII didn't write that himself. He found a poor composer and forced him to give the rights away, I think. Well, British history would suggest Henry VIII, a hungry monarch, liked food, didn't like his wives very much. That guy supposedly wrote Greensleeves, but it would definitely have been that. And then we kind of quantized that to make it sound a bit more like all the other obvious sounding music that we listen to now. I just thought that was a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
But it's possible to teach yourself. Well, again, not with that backing track.
Oh, that would work.
That'll do. I like it. half of the scale is safe. If you just do some of your chord tones. No surprises, in the words of Tom York. That's a bit odd. But if you just let it breathe and try and learn what happens when you employ that tension, and then, if you don't like the note, force yourself to hear it more. And then the next thing you would do to try and make friends with this scale a little more intimately is to get out of that rock guitar player habit of starting from the lowest note and just running up the scale, because that misses out on a whole dimension of what makes melody interesting. Two whole dimensions. Number one, if your training is every time you play that shape starting from the lowest note, that's a ridiculous place to start. If you think of any of your favourite guitar solos ever, how many of them started on the lowest note of a scale shape? There might be one, I'm sure there is, I hope there is. But in general, that's not what you do. So why practice that all the time? I like the idea every time you kind of visit a new scale, you do something a little bit different with it. Jumble the notes up, try and come up with a different permutation of things. Keep things fresh, discover something new that's buried in the scale. And melodic minor is really full of surprises, I think. Once you've taught yourself to like the sound of then you can start making the interval jumps bigger, and you'll find that your ability to predict what the next note will sound like becomes a little shakier as the intervallic jumps get bigger. Cool. That bird was the fifth. Nice. And then the really weird one is when you start looking at fourths and fifths in the melodic minor, because then you get, well, you know how it works with a normal major scale mode? Like 6 of the 7 possible fourth intervals are normal, and one of them is the interval of Satan, the tritone. Oh, yeah. But mostly they're all the same. Not so with the melodic minor. So it's a crazy thing. All the melodic minor is a major scale, but with one flattened note. And it makes such a huge difference to the way everything fits together. With melodic minor, fair enough. Fair enough. This one. So that fourth interval is actually a major third, which is unheard of, right? Then there's a normal one there. No. Get this, and again. 2 tritones. So I find there's something about the kind of tension, the slightly unsettling quality of the notes in that scale, which seems to go really well with these slightly jagged sounding intervals. It's like you've isolated something about the mood of that scale, and you figured out a way to bring it to the forefront and like magnify what makes that scale sound unique, which I think is cool. Is this making enough sense that you could apply some of it in your own private quality time with the instrument? I'm relieved. Delighted. I'm going to stop rambling for a second. I'm not going to drink that. I have to learn from experience. The last time I drank that, I didn't enjoy it. Are there any questions about any of this? Apparently so.
What about the application of these? I know some of the scales work good with major, some scales work good with minor. One of the scales works good with nothing. I got from your material. How do you pick and choose and blend them all together?
You listen to the music. The music tells you what to do, I think. Again, I think it's healthy, instead of thinking what's the right scale to use at this moment. I think it's really good to think I'm allowed to use any note I want. This is my solo, damn it. I'm going to express myself. Then to kind of embrace the idea that all 12 notes are okay, but they all come in a certain place, a certain kind of pecking order, where the root note is king. The root note will always sound good. It will always sound right. And then underneath that you have the other notes that are in the chord. And then maybe under that you have other notes which are in the next chord that hasn't happened yet, or perhaps in the last chord. There's definitely a thing when you hear a certain kind of chord progression, you have some kind of residual memory of the notes from the previous chord. So they continue to be right notes. It's not always the case, but sometimes it is. So if it's just... I need a new loop, don't I? If the song is just that, that's not a lot of information. All that's saying is you can play those notes. You can play the three different notes that are in a minor triad. Now, if you're confident that the song is going to stay there and it's not going to do anything John Coltrane in the immediate future, then you can decide. It's like, what do I want to add to this? So, I mean, that's a pretty safe one. Just adding a natural ninth. Maybe that I can get a bit mysterious because I've decided that A minor is going to happen for some time, so it's okay to inject a little mystery into the Or I might just go for more of a natural minor thing. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I kind of brainwashed you into liking a